Imagine for a second, just picture yourself standing in this room.
Okay, setting the scene.
Yeah, so you're in a room full of the absolute wealthiest, most powerful investors in the world.
Right. The titans of Silicon Valley.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you are standing there, you are completely sleep deprived, absolutely everything you own is on the line.
Like existential pressure.
Total existential pressure. And you are pitching a technology that could legitimately, I mean, no exaggeration, alter the trajectory of human history.
You've got the vision.
You've got the vision, you've got the math, you've got this sheer, unadulterated willpower.
Right.
And then right in the middle of this incredibly crucial moment, your former business partner.
Oh, man.
Yeah, a guy you literally built a multi-billion-dollar empire with. He loudly declares to the entire room that your idea is terrible.
Just brutal.
It's so brutal. And he doesn't just pass on the investment. He actively convinces everyone else in that room to give you exactly $0.
And, you know, what makes that moment so agonizing isn't just the rejection itself.
Right.
It's the source of the rejection. Like, you expect skepticism from a room full of strangers in suits.
Sure, that's their job.
Exactly. But you don't expect a public execution from the guy who was in the trenches with you.
Yeah, someone who knows exactly what you're capable of.
Right. He intimately knows your capabilities. So it's this incredibly precise, almost surgical kind of betrayal.
And that boardroom bloodbath, that is the exact starting point for our deep dive today.
It's such a wild story.
It really is. So we're looking at this fascinating dispatch from the near future today. It's a highly satirical, but honestly surgically precise blog post.
Yeah, dated May 12, 2026.
Right, 2026. It's from a site called Netizen, penned by an author named Paramendra Kumar Bhagat.
And it's such a brilliant artifact to look at.
Why do you say that?
Well, because it uses this 2026 vantage point to slice right through the polished, PR-approved mythology of Silicon Valley.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, we aren't looking at the sanitized hero's journey today.
No. We are looking at the incredibly messy, chaotic, and almost unbelievably petty reality behind the creation of all this infrastructure that runs our world.
Yeah, the real dirt.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the completely cutthroat origins of what is universally known as the PayPal Mafia.
Right, that legendary group of founders.
Yeah. We really want to dissect how some of the most calculated, ruthless minds on Earth operate when they're forced to sit across the negotiation table from one another.
And it gets ugly.
Very ugly.
Yeah.
We're going to explore exactly how traditional venture capital, the supposedly smart money of the early 2000s.
So-called smart money.
Exactly, so-called. How they completely and catastrophically misunderstood the future of physical hardware.
They really did.
And, most importantly for you listening right now, we're going to examine their bizarre, almost pathological tolerance for risk.
Which is key to all of this.
It is. And we'll look at what that mindset tells us about the technology that is actively shaping our reality in 2026.
So to do that, we are going to focus on two really legendary moments from the source.
Right. First up is that boardroom showdown we just mentioned.
Reid Hoffman's ultimate own goal against Elon Musk during the early days of SpaceX.
Yeah, that's a classic. And second, we're going to look at a literal physical car crash.
Oh, the McLaren.
Yes, involving Peter Thiel. And that crash serves as perhaps the most vivid metaphor for Silicon Valley risk ever documented.
It really is the perfect metaphor.
So let's start right at that negotiation table.
Let's do it.
This is where the theoretical, spreadsheet-driven frameworks of venture capital slam headfirst into the literal, unforgiving physics of space travel.
And the environment in Silicon Valley at that time, it's described in the text as absolutely brutal.
Yeah, there's this phrase the author uses to describe it, which I love.
Oh, the runway one.
Yes. A world where friendships last about as long as a Series A runway, and loyalty is measured in basis points.
I mean, I just love that phrasing because it really demands that we define exactly what kind of world these people inhabit.
Right. Break that down for us. What does that actually mean in practice?
So a Series A runway, that isn't a long time at all.
No.
When a startup gets its first major round of institutional funding, the Series A, that money is explicitly designed to last maybe 18 to 24 months.
If you're lucky.
Right? If you're lucky, it is a ticking clock. If you don't hit your growth metrics before that runway ends, your company dies.
It's just over.
Completely over. So saying a friendship lasts as long as a runway means these relationships are entirely contingent on immediate shared survival.
Which is a crazy foundation for a friendship.
Yeah.
And what about the basis points part?
Right. So basis points are these fractions of a percentage point used in high finance.
Good.
1 basis point is 1/100th of 1%.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you measure loyalty in basis points, you are stripping away the illusion that these founders are just, a band of brothers trying to change the world over pizza and late-night coding sessions.
The classic garage startup myth.
Exactly. They aren't that. They are apex competitors. The currency of their friendship is equity, it's leverage, it's board seats.
So it's a purely transactional brotherhood,
Purely transactional.
which sets the stage perfectly for this brutal moment in the boardroom.
It really does.
So you have Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn. He is sitting across from Elon Musk.
Two absolute heavyweights.
Yeah, and Musk is pitching SpaceX.
Right.
And Hoffman looks at him and delivers this totally devastating line.
Oh, I know the one.
He says, "That is a rocket. That is not a business."
It's such a cold line.
So cold.
Yeah.
And he delivers it with the supreme confidence of a man who had never once bet wrong on a professional network.
See, what's fascinating here is the sheer arrogance of that certainty.
Right.
But also, you have to look at the structural logic behind it.
What do you mean?
Well, Hoffman isn't just being petty here. I mean, he might be a little petty, but he is operating from a paradigm that has rewarded him with immense wealth and status.
Okay, the software paradigm.
Exactly. He understands networks. He understands software. In the realm of bits and bytes, Hoffman is the undisputed philosopher king.
He's the guy.
Right. He knows exactly how to acquire users, how to optimize engagement, and how to monetize attention.
But then in this pitch, he is presented with atoms.
Exactly. He's presented with massive, exploding tubes of metal designed to defy the gravitational pull of the Earth.
Which is just slightly different than a social network.
Just a little bit. And his analytical framework completely short circuits.
It just can't process it.
No, he cannot conceptualize a return on investment for
Yeah.
something that doesn't have an immediate, scalable software model attached to it.
Right. It lacks engagement metrics.
Yeah, it lacks what the VCs of the era would call AI blockchain synergy or viral growth loops.
And the result of him saying this is immediate.
Oh, the room just folds.
Totally. The room of VCs just nods sagely, the champagne flutes clink,
Right.
and somewhere a term sheet spontaneously combusts. SpaceX walks away with a perfect, pristine, investor-funded goose egg.
$0.
Not a single cent.
It is the ultimate manifestation of financial groupthink.
Which is so rampant in that world.
Oh, absolutely. Venture capital is incredibly momentum-driven.
Right.
When the perceived smartest guy in the room, the one who intimately understands the dominant software business model of the era, when he dismisses something so entirely, everyone else instantly falls in line.
Nobody wants to stick their neck out.
Exactly. It is infinitely safer for a VC partner to pass on a wild hardware bet because Reid Hoffman rejected it than to be the one rogue idiot who funded a literal explosion that wipes out the firm's capital.
Okay, but I have to stop you there and just push back on this whole so-called smart money VC mindset.
Yeah, go for it.
Because from a broader historical perspective,
Yeah.
it is staggeringly short-sighted.
Oh, completely.
Look at the analogy here. Dismissing a rocket because you can't see the immediate business model? It is exactly like standing there, looking at the invention of fire, watching it keep people warm and cook food, and completely dismissing it because you can't figure out the monthly subscription model for the firewood.
Right, the recurring revenue of logs.
Exactly. Or, to use the framing from our 2026 perspective in the source, it's delivered with the gravitas of a man proudly announcing that fire is, in fact, hot.
Yeah, pointing out the absolute obvious as if it's profound.
So why is an entire industry of highly educated, incredibly wealthy analysts so completely blind to massive generational leaps in human capability?
To understand that blindness, we really have to pull back the curtain on the actual mechanics of venture capital.
To do it.
VCs are not paid to be visionaries in the way we usually think they are.
They aren't.
Not really. They are paid to recognize patterns and manage risk across a portfolio.
Okay.
The entire VC model relies on something called the power law.
Right, the power law.
They make 10 investments knowing 9 will fail completely, just go to 0.
Right.
But that one winner has to grow so massively and so quickly that it pays for all the losses and returns the entire fund.
And software fits that power law perfectly.
Perfectly. And it's because of something called the zero marginal cost of distribution.
Which means what, exactly?
Basically, if you build LinkedIn or Facebook or any software, it takes money to write the code the first time.
Sure, you pay the engineers.
Right. But to add the 1 millionth user or the 1 billionth user, it costs you effectively nothing.
Just a tiny bit of server space.
Exactly. The margins are astronomical. But a rocket is the exact opposite of zero marginal cost.
Obviously.
Every single launch requires massive upfront capital, millions of dollars in literal fuel and metallurgy.
You can't just copy-paste a rocket.
You really can't. And the physical risks are existential. If a software update fails, you get a 404 error page.
Annoying, but fine.
Right. If a rocket fails, you get a crater and congressional hearings.
Yeah, that's a slightly bigger problem.
And the regulatory hurdles are astronomical, too.
Yeah.
So Hoffman wasn't just being unimaginative. He was perfectly applying the VC playbook of the decade.
He was playing the game he knew.
Exactly. The problem is that the playbook was entirely unsuited for the actual future of physical infrastructure.
And it's deeply ironic, right? Because if you look at the entire history of human transportation...
Oh, this is such a good point.
Yeah, from the domestication of horses to the creation of the automobile industry to the Wright brothers and the aviation industry...
Right.
Every single one of those was not a business until they suddenly, violently were.
Yes.
The VCs completely forgot how the physical world was built.
That is the exact blind spot. The Transcontinental Railroad wasn't a software-as-a-service play with recurring monthly revenue.
Right, they didn't have a freemium model for train tracks.
Exactly. And the early aviation industry was considered a dangerous, lethal novelty before it suddenly became the undisputed backbone of global logistics and commerce.
Yeah.
When you are creating entirely new physical infrastructure for human civilization, the traditional metrics of user engagement or customer acquisition costs, they simply do not apply.
They're irrelevant.
Completely irrelevant.
Yeah.
Hoffman was sitting there evaluating a CRM tool while Musk was trying to build a literal freight line to Earth's orbit. They weren't just disagreeing on a business model. They were operating in entirely different realities.
So Hoffman looks at physical risk, a rocket blowing up, and sees a bad investment.
Right.
But that complete dismissal of physical risk is actually the exact same psychological trait that makes these founders successful in the first place.
Oh, absolutely.
You really can't understand why they survive in the boardroom until you understand the psychological abyss they're living in.
It really is an abyss.
Look at Musk's reality in that specific moment. He is living an absolute nightmare.
The pressure is almost inconceivable to a normal person.
Right. We have this visceral imagery from the source of his mental state.
Yeah.
He is one failed ignition sequence away from total catastrophic annihilation.
Complete ruin.
It is full-blown cold sweat territory. The internal monologue is basically, if this rocket doesn't work, I lose Tesla, I lose SpaceX, and I end up selling flamethrowers out of my trunk.
Which is such a funny line.
It is.
Yeah.
And ironically, it's a hilarious nod to what actually happened years later with the Boring Company.
Right. He literally did sell flamethrowers.
He did. But in this specific historical moment, it represents absolute humiliating ruin.
Yeah, not a joke at all.
This is the kind of ambient stress that makes normal, well-adjusted people invent new religions or start aggressively microdosing just to cope.
We really have to pause and consider the sheer psychological endurance required to hold that position.
I can't even fathom it.
He has everything he has ever worked for. All his capital, his reputation, his entire identity, tied up in these physical machines that keep detonating on the launch pad.
Just exploding over and over.
For a normal human brain, the evolutionary instinct is preservation.
Right. Run away from the danger.
Exactly. When the fire gets too hot, you pull your hand away, you cut your losses, you declare bankruptcy, and you pivot to something safer.
Maybe an enterprise software app.
Right, something easy. But Musk's brain doesn't do that.
No.
He pushes all his chips to the center of the table over and over again, defying every instinct of self-preservation.
And while he is sweating through this existential crisis, staring down the barrel of personal bankruptcy, what is his old buddy Reid Hoffman doing?
Oh.
He's actively kicking him while he's down.
It's twisting the knife.
He is in front of the most powerful people in the valley, twisting the boot.
Yeah.
This is where the absurdity of this K-Pal Mafia dynamic really shines.
Yeah.
You have these old buddies, guys who built a multi-billion-dollar empire together, turning a glorified email money printer into PayPal.
Right.
Now publicly dunking on each other's civilization-altering ambitions.
It's so petty.
They are sitting across the VC table, acting exactly like divorced parents, fighting over custody of the future.
That is such a perfect way to put it. It reveals so much about the specific, almost gladiatorial nature of this brotherhood.
Gladiatorial, yeah.
They are bound together forever by a shared history of massive, world-altering success.
Right.
But they are simultaneously driven by egos that are simply too massive to share a single room.
The room isn't big enough.
No. The dynamic is incredible. They are tight enough that they would literally stab each other in the face for a better pitch deck.
Wow.
Yeah, they deeply respect each other's intellect because they've seen it in action, but they have absolutely zero reverence for each other's feelings. It is a uniquely American brand of ruthless, zero-sum capitalism.
And the source compares it to the Vanderbilts throwing lavish parties specifically just to exclude one another.
Exactly.
It's not enough to simply win the game of capitalism. Your former partner has to actively lose or at least be publicly humbled by your superior intellect.
It's the ultimate intellectual flex.
Yeah.
When Hoffman shoots down SpaceX, he isn't just saying no to a financial investment. He is attempting to assert philosophical dominance over the trajectory of technology.
That's a great way to frame it.
He is standing up and basically saying, my view of the world, which is built on network, software, and highly predictable human behavior, is the correct one. And your view of the world, which relies on explosions, brute force physics, and heavy engineering, is inherently childish and doomed to fail.
It's a total philosophical war.
It is a battle of worldviews played out with millions of dollars and human progress at stake.
And yet, because we are looking at this from the vantage point of 2026, we have the immense benefit of knowing exactly how this philosophical battle plays out.
Oh, we sure do.
Fast forward a few years, and SpaceX is valued in the 9 figures.
Insane growth.
They are launching more rockets into the sky in a single month than most sovereign nations managed to do in a decade.
It's unbelievable.
Meanwhile, Hoffman's LinkedIn is dutifully continuing its sacred mission of helping recruiters aggressively spam engineers with exciting opportunities in fintech adjacent to AI blockchain synergy.
The sacred mission.
Yeah. It is a devastating juxtaposition of impact.
It perfectly highlights the vast difference in the scale of their ambition. I mean, let's be clear, LinkedIn is undeniably successful. It fundamentally changed how professionals network globally, but it operates entirely within the safe, established order of human society.
It's just moving data around.
Exactly. It optimizes existing systems. SpaceX, on the other hand, is attempting to alter the physical, geographical capabilities of the human species.
Like actually changing our reality.
Yes. When you compare the ambition of making humanity a multiplanetary species to the ambition of helping a recruiter find a mid-level marketing manager, the contrast is just absurd.
It really is.
And it proves definitively that the venture capital consensus in that room, led by Hoffman, was spectacularly, historically wrong.
So we have this fundamental disconnect. The VCs are obsessed with incremental business metrics and safe bets.
Right.
While the founders are taking existential all-or-nothing risks.
Exactly.
But you can't fully grasp why these founders survive in the boardroom until you see how they act when physical reality turns against them.
Which is terrifying.
It is. Which brings us to the second legendary moment from our source. We are moving from the boardroom to the leather seats of a brand new, uninsured supercar.
This story, the contrast here is just brilliant.
It's amazing.
If the boardroom story shows us how traditional finance views risk, this car crash story shows us how the founders themselves literally embody it.
Yeah?
It is the physical manifestation of their business philosophy.
So let's set the scene for you listening. It's the early days. Shortly after the PayPal acquisition.
Right.
Musk is flushed with cash, and he buys the ultimate status symbol.
Oh, yeah.
It's a McLaren F1. I just sold PayPal and now I'm rich. Special.
A beautiful car.
A ridiculously fast, incredibly rare, hyper-expensive piece of machinery.
Yeah.
And he decides he wants to take his old co-conspirator, Peter Thiel, for a spin to show him what the future of transportation feels like.
Because of course he does.
Right. He doesn't want to show him a PowerPoint. He wants to show him the raw, physical reality of speed.
And we absolutely must look at the psychological profiles of the two men sitting in those seats.
Yes, let's break that down.
It is a clash of titans. First, you have Peter Thiel in the passenger seat.
Okay.
He is widely considered the professional chess grandmaster of capitalism.
He's the strategy guy.
Exactly. This is the man who wrote the book 0 to 1.
And what does 0 to 1 actually mean in this context? Let's clarify that.
So it's the core of Thiel's entire philosophy.
Okay.
Moving from one to known means taking something that already exists and just copying it, scaling it up.
Like opening a second coffee shop.
Perfect example. Incremental progress. And Thiel hates incrementalism.
Despises it.
Right. Moving from 0 to 1 means creating something entirely new. something that did not exist before.
Like a totally new paradigm.
Yes. He is a man obsessed with monopolies and paradigm shifts.
Right.
He is someone who calculates compound interest in his head for fun.
Of course he does.
The joke in the text is that Teal is probably sitting in the passenger seat of this McLaren, analyzing the seatbelt and wondering why the locking mechanism feels vaguely libertarian.
That is so specific.
It is, but it shows how he operates on pure, calculated logic at all times.
And driving the car is Elon Musk,
Oh boy.
a man who operates as a flaming ball of chaos.
Total chaos.
While Teal is doing macroeconomic math in his head, Musk is running a Monte Carlo simulation.
And we really need to explain what a Monte Carlo simulation actually is here,
Yeah, go ahead.
because it's vital to understanding how Musk views danger.
Okay.
A Monte Carlo simulation isn't just doing math or making a wild guess.
Right.
It is a computational algorithm that runs thousands or even millions of randomized scenarios to calculate the exact probability of every possible outcome.
So he's not just driving fast.
No. The implication here is that his brain is supposedly running 1,000 parallel timelines of this exact drive.
Wow.
He knows the physics of the car, the friction of the tires, the curve of the road, and he has mathematically accepted that in, say, 30% of those timelines, they die in a fiery wreck.
He's just cool with that.
He has decided that the 70% of timelines where they live and the sheer thrill of the acceleration makes that risk acceptable.
It's the perfect odd couple of Silicon Valley.
It really is.
You have the ultimate theorist, the grandmaster of logic, riding shotgun with the ultimate risk taker who views his own mortality as a statistical probability.
Exactly.
And then, as is inevitable when you push physics too far,
It always happens.
physics decides to file a formal complaint.
Yeah, it does.
The tires lose traction, the car launches into the air, it flips,
Such a violent image.
and the description in the source is perfect. It flips like a pancake, like a bad startup, like Reid Hoffman's opinion on rockets.
I love that line.
It is total devastation. $1 million of exquisite German and British metal settling upside down on its roof, shattered glass everywhere, the acrid smell of airbag propellant filling the cabin.
Think about what a normal human being does in that situation. Total panic. You have just survived a high-speed violent rollover in a hyper-expensive vehicle.
Yeah.
You would be in profound shock. You would be terrified, patting yourself down for broken bones, frantically calling an ambulance.
Or instantly screaming at your lawyers to figure out liability.
Exactly. The adrenaline dump alone would leave most people shaking uncontrollably.
But not Elon.
Nope.
They are sitting upside down in the wreckage, suspended by their seatbelts.
Right.
And Musk turns to Peale, again, the chess grandmaster of capitalism who just had his life flash before his eyes.
Poor Teal.
And Musk delivers what is arguably the single greatest line in Silicon Valley history.
It's so good.
He says, you know what the funny part is? The car is not insured.
It is absolute cinema.
It really is.
It is a moment so deeply surreal, so utterly divorced from normal human reactions, that it feels scripted by a screenwriter trying to make a point about hubris.
Wait, I need to stop you there because I have to express utter disbelief at this.
It's unbelievable, I know.
Walk me through the actual logic here.
Yeah.
This isn't just reckless. It defies the very mathematical modeling these guys claim to worship.
Okay, I see where you're going.
Right. Like, if you were a billionaire who relies on complex physics to build rockets,
Yeah.
and you are literally betting your entire life on electric cars succeeding,
Yeah.
why would you selectively ignore the math on the highway?
Yeah.
Why would you not spring for basic collision coverage? It makes absolutely no sense to ignore risk mitigation when it's the foundation of your business.
If you view it through the lens of a normal person buying car insurance, it makes no sense.
Right.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture of their specific psychological framework,
Right.
it makes perfect sense. To these founders, as the source points out, insurance is for people who think the future is optional.
Wow.
Buying insurance is a psychological admission of the possibility of failure. It is a hedge.
So buying insurance means you lack conviction.
Precisely. This wasn't a clerical oversight where he, forgot to mail a check.
Right. He didn't just forget.
No, it was, as it's described in the text, performance art.
Performance art.
Yes, it is what happens when you take the famous Silicon Valley mantra of move fast and break things entirely too literally.
Very literally.
While the rest of the Valley is busy insuring their startups' ping pong tables and obsessing over filing their Series B paperwork perfectly,
Right.
Musk is inventing new, terrifying forms of financial Russian roulette.
That's insane.
He had just bet his entire life, his entire liquid fortune, on building rockets and electric cars, things that every expert on Earth told him were completely impossible.
Right, the stakes were already astronomical.
So to him, worrying about a few $100,000 for a car when he is actively trying to get humanity to Mars, it's microscopic thinking.
It doesn't even register.
It's an insult to his ambition. He operates entirely in the macro. His philosophy is basically, we're all going to Mars or die trying, and preferably, we're doing it in an uninsured Tesla.
It's just staggering audacity.
It really is.
And poor Peter Thiel.
I know, right?
The guy who absolutely loathes incremental progress. The man who wants to move from 0 to 1 in a highly controlled, monopolistic fashion.
Yeah.
He is now sitting upside down in a ditch, trapped in an uninsured supercar with the human equivalent of a chaotic rocket emoji.
Just strapped in for the ride.
Thiel, to his eternal credit, survives both the physical crash and the incredibly awkward conversation that follows.
Barely.
But legend has it, he still gets the 1,000-yard stare anytime someone casually mentions going for a test drive.
I don't blame him. It's a dark punchline, but it perfectly illustrates why this specific group of founders is undefeated at turning potential Darwin Awards into billion-dollar empires.
Yeah, they just don't think like us.
They completely lack the fundamental self-preservation instinct that holds normal people and, crucially, normal investors like Reid Hoffman back.
Right.
They view the edge of the cliff not as a boundary to avoid, but as the starting line.
But here's where we really have to bridge this history to our present reality and really connect this to you, the listener.
Let's do that.
Because that concept, taking move fast and break things to an existential level, treating massive risk as a minor inconvenience, that didn't just stay in an overturned supercar in the early 2000s.
No, it did not.
It scaled up. That exact mindset matured, gained infinite capital, and shaped the entire geopolitical and technological landscape we see surrounding this 2026 blog post.
This is where it gets real.
We need to remember the date of our source material here. May 12, 2026.
Right.
This isn't just a history lesson about old cars. It's a dispatch from a very specific near future that we are accelerating toward right now.
And the peripheral details the author includes around the main story, they're incredibly revealing.
The sidebars on the blog.
Yes, the sidebars. They paint a vivid picture of a world that is dealing with the direct, unavoidable consequences of that uninsured, all-or-nothing mindset, scaling up from personal vehicles to global infrastructure.
So let's look at those sidebar realities the author explicitly includes in the 2026 world.
Let's run through them.
We see a headline about an ongoing Musk-Altman trial. The text notes a satirical headline floating around the internet. AI escapes during the Musk-Altman trial.
Right.
Now, even though it's marked as satire by the author, it reflects a deeply held, visceral anxiety of the 2026 public.
A very real fear.
Yeah. We also see a very real-sounding New York Times link stating, this is Sam Altman's first time testifying in court.
This completely shifts the stakes.
How so?
It tells us that the battles have moved away from VC boardrooms squabbling over seed funding for rockets.
Right. It's not about term sheets anymore.
Exactly. And they have landed squarely in federal courts, fighting over the fundamental nature, control, and safety of artificial intelligence.
Wow.
The chaotic, combative energy of the early 2000s PayPal Mafia has evolved.
It's the same energy, different arena.
Yes. It's no longer about who gets a better return on investment. It's a high-stakes, existential struggle between the actual architects of AI.
And that joke about the AI escaping.
Right. The joke about AI escaping during the trial is potent because it highlights the very real fear that the technology they are building is actively becoming untethered from human control.
And it's not just software anymore. We see the physical infrastructure required to run this world reaching absolute extremes.
That part blew my mind.
There's a link mentioned from Singularity Hub. In the scramble to power AI, investors bet $140 million on data centers at sea.
Just think about that.
I mean, let's break down the actual mechanics of that.
Yeah.
Why on earth are they putting data centers in the ocean?
It comes down to the brutal thermodynamics of artificial intelligence.
Okay, thermodynamics.
Yeah. Training advanced AI models requires tens of thousands of specialized processors running constantly,
Right.
which generates an unbelievable amount of heat.
Like melting the servers kind of heat?
Exactly. Cooling these data centers on land requires massive amounts of electricity and fresh water, straining local grids to the breaking point.
They're just eating all the power.
They really are. So by putting the data centers at sea, they are attempting to use the infinite freezing depths of the ocean as a natural coolant.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
It is. They are running massive submarine power cables and risking total hardware destruction from saltwater corrosion just to keep the AI fed.
Saltwater and electronics, famous best friends.
Right. It is exactly the kind of brute force, hardware-heavy, wild engineering ambition that Musk championed in the SpaceX days, applied now to the literal brain of the internet.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the spectrum, a Slashdot headline notes that the EU is aggressively cracking down on TikTok and Instagram's addictive design.
Yeah.
So you have governments trying to legislate human psychology.
You see the dichotomy perfectly there.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have massive physical engineering, servers in the ocean pushing the limits of the natural world to build the future.
Right.
On the other hand, you have regulators desperately trying to rein in the psychological manipulation built into the software platforms that Reid Hoffman's era of VCs funded and perfected.
So it's happening on both fronts.
Exactly. The 2026 world is wrestling simultaneously with the physical constraints of AI and the societal damage of engagement-optimized social networks.
It's a world being squeezed from both sides by the legacies of the PayPal Mafia.
Yes, perfectly stated.
And if you look at the author of the blog himself, Parmendra Kumar Bhagat, his vast bibliography speaks volumes about where things are heading.
Oh, his titles are so revealing.
They are. He has books titled Agentic AI, Set to Explode in 2026, Physical AWS, How the Logistics Cloud Will Reshape Global Commerce and the Convergence Age.
Right.
Let's clarify some of these terms for the listener because they are dense.
Yeah, let's break them down.
What exactly is physical AWS?
So AWS is Amazon Web Services.
The cloud.
Exactly, the cloud computing platform that runs most of the internet. If you want a server today, you don't buy a physical box anymore. You just rent a virtual one with a click of a button.
Right, easy.
Physical AWS means applying that exact same concept to the literal physical world.
Wait, how does that work?
Imagine a world where logistics, manufacturing, and supply chains are completely abstracted.
Okay.
You write a line of code, and an automated factory produces a good, an autonomous drone fleet moves it, and robotic warehouses store it.
So you're programming physical reality.
Exactly. It's the API-ification of atoms. Tech has completely moved beyond the screen. It is dominating the literal physical world.
That is wild. And what about agentic AI?
That's the other half of the equation.
Okay.
Traditional AI is basically a chatbot. You ask it a question, it gives you an answer.
Or you prompt it,
Agentic AI is an artificial intelligence that actually has agency.
meaning it can act on its own?
Yes. You give it a goal, like maximize profit for this supply chain, and it independently breaks down the steps, interacts with other software, and takes action in the real world.
Potentially using that physical AWS infrastructure you just mentioned.
Exactly. And it does all this without needing human approval for every single step.
So what does this all mean for you and me listening to this?
The big question.
Yeah, I have to ask the critical question here. Did the wild, uninsured risk-taking of the early 2000s, this complete refusal to accept limits or safety nets, did that directly create a 2026 where technology has completely outpaced societal guardrails?
It is a direct, unbroken lineage.
You think so?
I do. The 0 to 1 mindset, the complete and utter rejection of incremental progress that we saw when Thiel and Musk were upside down in that McLaren, that naturally evolves into this exact landscape.
Wow.
When you financially and culturally reward founders for treating massive existential risk as a minor hurdle to be ignored.
Which Silicon Valley absolutely does.
Right. You eventually get technologies that pose actual existential risks to society.
Yeah.
You get AI that might escape. You get massive energy drains requiring oceanic data centers.
It's all connected.
It really is. The psychological mindset that built the empire is the exact same mindset that refuses to be constrained by government regulation or safety protocols today.
Because that's incrementalism.
Exactly. They didn't buy insurance for their cars then, and they certainly don't want to buy insurance against the singularity now.
Think about your own life right now. Look at the apps on your phone.
Yeah, look around.
Look at the autonomous vehicles testing on your city streets. Look at the algorithms deciding what news you see or what jobs you get filtered for.
It's everywhere.
All of that infrastructure is being governed by the uninsured car philosophy.
And that's terrifying.
It is. And the reality is, when move fast and break things applies to societal infrastructure rather than just lines of code, you, the consumer, the citizen, you are the one who bears the cost of the things being broken.
That is the ultimate tax of living in a world designed by these founders.
Which brings us back to the core lessons we can pull from this deep dive.
Let's summarize.
The path to groundbreaking innovation, the kind that legitimately alters human history, is rarely polite.
Very rarely.
It is almost never safe. And it is very rarely understood by traditional metrics at the time. We've seen that sometimes the smart money sitting in the boardroom with their spreadsheets and champagne flutes is spectacularly, historically wrong.
Just completely missed the boat.
Exactly.
And we've seen that the people actually building the future are often doing it entirely without a safety net, both financially and literally.
Right.
They operate with a risk tolerance that borders on the pathological, running Monte Carlo simulations while the car flips in the air.
The Netizen blog leaves us with some very practical, if deeply cynical, advice at the end.
Oh, I love the ending of the post.
It suggests that the next time a sleep-deprived genius with 3 companies on the brink of bankruptcy corners you and tells you he's going to colonize Mars, maybe don't leave the room in polite, dismissive chuckles.
Probably a bad idea.
Just Venmo him $50,000 in a note that says, sorry in advance.
That's hilarious.
Or don't, because, as the author says, the rockets are objectively funnier when the VCs miss out.
It's a highly entertaining, humorous conclusion, for sure. But it masks a profound truth about how incredibly difficult it is to recognize paradigm-shifting ambition when it's staring you directly in the face.
That's hard to see the future.
It is. But this raises an important question, a lingering thought we really need to sit with as we wrap up today.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have seen clearly that the architects of our modern world, these legendary founders of the PayPal Mafia, they view traditional safety nets, whether that's basic car insurance or the approval of venture capital consensus.
Right.
They view them as constraints meant for cowards.
Yeah, they fundamentally view caution as a moral failing.
A moral failing, that's exactly it.
They view slowing down to assess risk as a betrayal of progress itself.
Exactly. So here is what you need to ask yourself as you navigate the tech-driven world of today and tomorrow.
Okay.
If the digital and physical infrastructure of our global economy was built by minds that view existential risk as nothing more than a mathematical Monte Carlo simulation to be run in their heads while the car is flipping in midair.
Just a thought experiment.
Right. What happens when those exact same minds are the ones solely responsible for designing the safety protocols for the artificial intelligence of tomorrow?
Oh, wow.
Are we, as a society, comfortable trusting the future of humanity to people who never bothered to insure the vehicle?